Hello and welcome to Broadcasting Scotland. It's Monday the 10th of January. I'm Andrew Wilson and this is Scotland at 7. First we will have today's coronavirus update, then I'll introduce this evening's guest, and then together we will look at today's headlines from Scotland and around the world. As of 2 p.m. today, since the start of the pandemic, a total of 4,090,377 people in Scotland have been tested through the NHS Scotland labs and the UK Government regional testing centres. Of these, 3,033,540 have been confirmed negative, and 1,056,837 have tested positive. There are 11,827 new cases of COVID-19 confirmed by a test, although not everyone with the virus will display symptoms, and not all those with symptoms will be tested. The figures being reported today do include a backlog from before Christmas. Of the people who have tested positive, 1,432 were in hospital last night, 54 of whom were in intensive care. There are no new reported deaths of people who have tested positive, and so the number of patients in Scotland who have died from coronavirus infection now stands at 9,934. This number only includes those who have died having received a positive test for the virus in the previous 28 days. The latest UK daily figures show that 150,230 patients who had tested positive for COVID-19 have sadly died from their illness, and that is an increase of 77 since yesterday. This number refers to deaths in all settings, not just in hospitals. And as of 8 a.m. this morning, 4,392,694 people had received their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccination, 4,048,656 had received their second dose, and 3,115,065 had received a third dose or booster. Now, we are lucky enough to be joined this evening by the activist, carer and humanitarian aid worker, Newton Mearn's answer to Nadia Hussein, Mr. Chris McCusker. A good new year to you, Chris. How are you keeping this evening?
A happy new year to yourself, Andrew. It's great to be back on the show, first one of 2022.
Well, it's lovely to see you this evening, Chris, and thank you for joining us. Our first story this evening is that the SNP has accused Boris Johnson of being out of touch with the cost of living for ordinary families. The SNP has accused Boris Johnson of being utterly out of touch, referencing previous reports that he had complained about struggling to get by on his £157,000 a year salary. It comes after sources in the UK government called on the Prime Minister to get a grip over rising costs to energy, just as record levels of inflation, Tory cuts and tax hikes are set to hammer millions of families all across the UK. The SNP criticised the Prime Minister over his failures to heed warnings over the cost of living crisis, which is set to leave families £1,200 worse off every year from April. According to the Office for National Statistics, 2/3 of people have already said that their cost of living has increased in the last month, and polling released by YouGov this morning reveals that 33% of Britons are worried about their energy bills rising by more than they can afford. The SNP's Shadow Treasury spokesperson, Alison Thewlis MP, reiterated the party's call for an emergency package of support, including a low-income energy payment, matching the Scottish Child Payment across the UK, reversing the £20 a week cut to universal credit, and raising the minimum wage and statutory sick pay to the real living wage of £9.90 an hour. Commenting, Alison Thewlis said, "Ordinary families are bearing the brunt of a cost of living crisis, which Boris Johnson's government is doing nothing about." But of course, this is a Prime Minister who has claimed he can't get by on his £157,000 salary, living in a flat redecorated with Tory donor cash, so it's no wonder he is so out of touch. The Prime Minister, she continued, is sleepwalking into catastrophe. It shouldn't take senior Tories briefing against him to wake him up to the brutal reality that many across the country will have to suffer if he continues doing nothing. With the UK having the worst levels of poverty and inequality in North West Europe, it's clear that action must now be taken, or else Tories will push millions more into hardship. So, Chris, the Prime Minister receives an annual allowance of about £30,000 to maintain and furnish the flat above 11 Downing Street. And any expense above the £30,000 has to be covered by himself. But the renovations organised by Lulu Little are reported to have cost £112,549. As we also know, the unused and abandoned Downing Street press briefing room cost £2.6 million. And we know that the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, is said to be the wealthiest of all MPs, thanks to his past career as a banker, a hedge fund owner, and mainly his marriage to Akshata Murthy, the daughter of one of India's most successful entrepreneurs. So with that as a backdrop, do you think Johnson or Sunak or any other senior cabinet members have any idea about the lives of the majority of people in the UK?
Absolutely none whatsoever. You know, I mean, what can we say that's not been said already about Boris Johnson and, in fact, his cabal in Westminster? And, you know, Alison Thewlis is completely correct, obviously, to cite the various misdemeanours that need corrected. The Tories talk about levelling up and all the rest of it, whatnot, and what have you. There is no amount of levelling up that could be done in order to eradicate the inequality within Britain as it stands today. And we have, as you quite eloquently pointed out, the £157,000 that you can't afford to live on, added on the refurbishment costs of the upper flat, which was paid by Tory lords and stuff like that. And that's not mentioning the expenses that he's obviously claimed for the shall we say, business meetings that weren't really parties, although there was cheese and wine involved and other such commodities. So make no mistake, that there is nothing going to change in the way that the Tories operate. I mean, obviously, we didn't see this level of hypocrisy under Theresa May and formerly obviously John Major and the likes. But what they are doing is the fact that they are doing it out in the open and with flagrant disregard for the ordinary common working person. And they don't care whether the things that Alison has asked to be reversed and reinstated and stuff like that, as laudable as it is never going to happen under this Tory government. And to be honest with you, even if there was, even if Sir Keir Starmer actually was able to, take over the Tory party, I don't honestly see. I don't mean actually Keir Starmer taking over the Tory party, but well, actually, I could say that. But if Starmer was able to form a Labour government, these inequalities wouldn't be eradicated overnight. It would take a hell of a long time, in order to redress the balance. Because at the end of the day, Starmer is further removed from a socialist than Boris Johnson is, and that's the plain and honest truth about it. And when you start thinking about the basis, the ethos of socialism, the redistribution of wealth, then you just know that makeup is not going to be replicated within the halls of Westminster anytime soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. We'll come back to some of those topics, I think, a couple of times during the programme this evening. But we'll move to our next story now, which is that the SNP has condemned the Tory government's extreme Brexit plans after fresh warnings that Brexit-related customs delays and red tape will pile on the costs for firms this year, further compounding the cost of living crisis gripping the UK. A survey of 228 firms by Make UK, an industry body representing 20,000 manufacturing firms across the UK, found that more than half, 56%, of firms said that they were likely to face further damage due to customs delays and changes in rules around labelling. Meanwhile, two-thirds of companies stated that Brexit had moderately or significantly hampered their business. Separately, a YouGov poll found that three-quarters of people in Scotland believe the UK government is handling Brexit badly, while the majority of people across the whole UK also believe the UK government is handling Brexit badly. Commenting, the SNP's Shadow Europe spokesperson Dr. Philippa Whitford MP said, instead of helping businesses navigate through the challenges posed by the pandemic, Boris Johnson's government instead imposed an extreme Brexit that is piling on the hardship and costs. Firms across the UK are warning that Brexit-related customs delays, red tape, and reduced access to labour are impacting on their business and could lead to soaring costs. The UK government must heed the warnings and act, rather than continue to bury its head in the sand. So, Chris, there are a number of components in this story, I think. On the one hand, I think it's fair to say that the Brexit up until now, and now Brexit again with the introduction of customs checks for goods travelling from the EU to the UK, their introduction was delayed by a year, but it's now in force. That is certainly hindering trade, and trade I think is said to be down 15% year on year. But in terms of the impact of Brexit on the cost of living in the UK, so I'm talking there about things that are manufactured or are distilled or are processed in the UK and are sold in the UK market. Do you think people are starting to realise that Brexit is having an effect on those costs as well?
Well, I think, it's a gradual process that now that the shall we say the year's grace is up, and soon, we will see the full effect of Brexit and all its ugliness, come to the fore. And I've often advocated all since the Brexit vote happened, is that once Brexit actually hits the middle income earners in the country, that is when they will, wake up and smell the coffee. They'll, have their epiphany, and realise that it was the greatest act of self-harm that any one country could inflict upon itself.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. We'll move on to another story regarding the Prime Minister, because almost half of all Tory members no longer believe that Boris Johnson is the right man to lead their party, according to a new poll. A YouGov poll of 1,005 Tory members, conducted between 30 December and 6 January for Sky News, concluded that 4 in 10 members believe the Prime Minister is doing a bad job leading the country. The poll also concluded that a staggering 39% of Tory membership believe Boris Johnson cannot be trusted to tell the truth, following a string of accusations about rule breaking and corruption within Number 10. This news comes at a time where the Tories battle a mountain of corruption allegations, as well as Brexit-fueled cost of living catastrophic crisis. So, Chris, firstly, do you think is it the history of lying? Is it the self-serving? Is it the incompetence, or is it something else that is persuading Tory members that Johnson is doing a bad job, and that it's get the time when the notorious men in grey suits will come and take him away?
Well, no, I think it's all those bullet points that you highlighted there. And interesting, when we're talking about polls, I see that there was a recent one that actually cites that the half of the Tory membership would prefer to see Rishi Sunak doing the job of Prime Minister. And that's, the best case scenario, because, Christ help us if it turns out to be Liz Truss. But I mean, that I'm going to be very controversial here, and I'm going to say that that's never going to happen, because neither the Tory party or the Labour Party, for that matter, have got the tenacity to elect shall we say, a person of alternative colour to what is normally represented within the Westminster establishment. They will never. I don't see it in my lifetime that any party would be brave enough in order to put an Asian or even anyone from a ethnic background into such high office. I just don't believe that they have the strength, in themselves as human beings in order to do that. I just don't see it.
It's an interesting point that you make. We've got a Home Secretary who's of an Asian background. We have a number of cabinet ministers that way who've got Asian heritage, and so it's an interesting point that you make. I wonder whether the fact that Rishi Sunak is the wealthiest MP, might that sway Tory voters at all? Do you think?
No, I think it's a cup of gravy that is too thick for them to swallow. Honestly, I think there's more chance of Humza Yousaf being First Minister of Scotland than being acceptable within the halls of the establishment. I mean, we're talking about that their values have not progressed since the 16th century, and the very idea of having a foreign national run their country, regardless of whether they were born in this country or not. I'm not too sure about whether Rishi Sunak was, but I know for a fact that that Humza, despite what you read in various tabloid journals in Scotland and stuff like that, Humza Yousaf is a very competent individual. The various portfolios that he's handled in his rather short political career, let's be quite honest. And I'm not, advocating, Humza for FM, but I'm merely drawing the comparison that Scotland is a more tolerable society, and it was, it could be easily conceived that an Asian First Minister would be more widely accepted than what it would the English counterpart, Prime Minister.
Yep. No, absolutely. I just checked. Rishi Sunak was born in Southampton. Anyway, our next story this evening is that the SNP has warned that Westminster's nuclear obsession ahead of a bill that will allow energy companies to increase consumer bills to build nuclear plants. The Tories' Nuclear Energy Financing Bill, which will receive its third reading in the House of Commons today, will allow energy companies to pass the cost of a future nuclear power station to their current consumers. The bill comes amidst a cost of living crisis blamed on the UK government as energy bills and food prices continue to soar after a £1,000 cut to universal credit and ahead of a regressive national insurance hike. The Scottish Government has made it clear that it is committed to opposing new nuclear power plants and prioritising renewable and low-carbon sources of energy, with Scotland now producing nearly all of its electricity from renewable resources. So, Chris, a report by Scottish and Southern Energy actually said that the current government deal for the construction of the 2 reactors at Hinkley Point will see increased energy bills for the next 35 years. The report also says that leading analyst Peter Atherton described Hinkley as the most expensive conventional nuclear power station in the world, and more importantly, as a clear case of socialising risk and privatising profits. So does it come as a surprise to you that it appears that the government is seeking to increase that, taking more money from the consumer and putting more risk on the taxpayer, whilst improving the profits for the private operators and financiers of these power stations?
Well, yeah, you know, I mean, I meant to point out earlier on when we were discussing the petition of Alison Thewlis, is the fact that the energy prices come April are going to skyrocket to an eye-watering 51%. That's going to see your average house energy cost be around £500-600. It is absolutely unimaginable in this day and age that the UK government are unwilling to. I'm not calling for the UK government to bail out various energy companies, but they are unwilling to do anything to avert an energy crisis. And they pursue this narrow-minded optimism of usage of the fossil fuel industry, obviously, but more worrying as their complete obsession of using nuclear fuel. The other side of the coin is the fact that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't actually think that Hinkley Point is actually going to benefit Scotland in any such way, shape, or fashion. Very, very similar to HS2 and all the other vanity projects that are going on, down in the southeast of the country. So again, Scotland is being held back, because I believe that we could be producing 100% of our renewable energy to power Scotland and Scotland alone, and we're being held back, being able to do that because, as you know, energy is a reserved issue to Westminster, and try as Scotland might. In order to make some inroads, and we have, we will always be held back by Westminster's obsession over nuclear and fossil fuel.
Absolutely, thanks, Chris. Now then, we'll move away from Johnson and the Tory party for a moment, because France will press the EU to negotiate an asylum and migration treaty with the UK in an attempt to deter people from making the dangerous Channel crossing. The French government, which last week took up the 6-month rotating presidency of the EU Council of Ministers, wants the whole bloc to act together, despite warnings that other member states have no appetite at all for a migration treaty with the UK. A senior French government official said the purpose of an EU-UK treaty would be to open up a legal means of immigration with Great Britain so people can legally go to Great Britain to seek asylum. The source added that obviously that means reciprocity, suggesting British authorities could send people denied asylum back to the European country from which they had arrived. We would be prepared to consider this, he said. The idea is to have a zero balance at the end of the day. Yet it remains unclear if the UK would agree to such proposals. During Brexit negotiations, the government was refused an asylum pact that would have allowed UK authorities to return people denied asylum to the EU, an arrangement that existed under the UK's EU membership. The government, however, has long opposed allowing people to apply for asylum outside the UK. So, Chris, this is an area a little bit closer to your heart, I think, in some senses. And I'm not sure I agree with the senior French government official talking about identifying a legal means of immigration with Great Britain. We know that the description of those seeking refugee status and asylum as illegals is repulsive and inaccurate in law, but I'll put that down to there being a mistranslation, perhaps. Is it fair to say that I'll choose my words more carefully, perhaps, than the spokesperson. Is it fair to say that a clearer route to crossing the Channel and seeking asylum or refugee status sounds like a good idea, insofar as it makes it a safer route?
It's a great idea, but it will never happen. Unfortunately, and obviously, I'm speaking from my own experiences. And the fact of the matter is, and funnily enough, actually, we haven't finished discussing Boris Johnson, because this brings in, his inability to actually read what was actually in the treaty before we enacted Brexit. Because it's quite right to point out the fact that, up until Brexit, we, did have a treaty with the EU that we could deport people who, didn't actually fulfil the criteria to claim asylum. But when we switched the button on Brexit, that was turned off. So all the lies that were told by the likes of Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson and Priti Patel, about the fact that they were taking back control, there is no control. I have to be quite harsh actually on the French government, because they have a very little appetite for refugees either, and I see that in my own experiences. Pre-COVID, when I went out to Calais and to Dunkirk, the local mayors were, obviously wanting to look after the community and want to do what's best for the community, but they were being hampered by Paris. And basically, France is such a centralised country, insofar as the country doesn't do anything unless Paris says, is able to actually do anything. The mayors have got very, very little power, in that regard. So I think this is just a shape of words. Again, to highlight the fact that Britain is pretty much left out in the dark, with regards to the rest of the European community, who are dealing with the refugee and asylum issue, not as best as they can. I can't say that. Obviously, they could do better. But with quite a few countries unwilling to deal with Britain, because quite a few countries have actually given up the ghost that that they are ever going to get anything coherent, concise, and something that is not going to be overturned in a blink of an eye from the British government. They have no appetite for it whatsoever. So I think this is just again, it's a kind of like a war of words and stuff like that, which is never going to be resolved. And that is a harsh reality that the people of Britain need to actually, own up and admit to as being one of the things that they voted for when they voted for Brexit.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. Now then, Russian oligarchs' use of London to launder their fortunes is to come under renewed scrutiny after the Conservative-controlled Foreign Affairs Select Committee agreed to re-examine the government's apparent inability to crack down on the practice. The inquiry will be a concern to the Foreign Office, which has frequently been accused of deliberately leaving a gap between its tough anti-Russian rhetoric and failure to control either money laundering or those in the UK that enable that corruption. The UK Government Foreign Secretary Liz Truss says that the UK has some of the toughest anti-corruption laws in the world, but even in her short period in office, she has been repeatedly challenged to review whether the laws are working effectively or are adequately policed. The Foreign Affairs Select Committee inquiry will take the form of a follow-up to its previous inquiry, Moscow's Gold, published in 2018, which found that gaps in the government anti-corruption armoury. The 2018 report warned, turning a blind eye to London's role in hiding the proceeds of Kremlin-connected corruption risks signalling that the UK is not serious about confronting the full spectrum of President Putin's offensive measures. Since then, the prestigious think tank Chatham House has argued that the UK does have a problem with Russian money, claiming the law in this area is so poorly constructed and under-resourced that it amounts to self-regulation. But the government is also accused of dragging its heels on implementing relevant laws, including a public register of beneficial owners of overseas entities that buy or sell property. That measure was first announced in 2016, but has been repeatedly delayed. So, Chris, there are probably a couple of things in this I was going to talk to you about. Firstly, do you think there is much prospect of the current Westminster Tory government doing anything in connection with the flow of suspect money into the UK from Russia, when we have Lubov Chernukin, one of the biggest donors to the Tories, giving more than £1.8 million since 2012, Mohamed Amersi, who's given nearly over £500,000 to the Tories since 2018, and the former oil executive Viktor Fedotov, who has donated to no fewer than 34 different Tory MPs?
Short answer is no. You know, Boris Johnson is all about the money. You know, the Tories in Westminster are all about the money. And they love nothing more than to see money swirling around southeast of England. You know, obviously London in itself, and whether that's through hedge funds or whether it's through various businesses, properties, or nightclubs, restaurants, all the rest of it. They couldn't give two shinies, because as long as, I mean, Boris Johnson is all about the gravy train. And that's the be all and end all of it. That's where his head's at. So nothing will be done about this. It'll be swept under the carpet again. Very much like the previous inquiry, it led nowhere. It was, as far as I was led to believe, inconclusive. Yes, through that inquiry, the outcome was there. Should be another inquiry. Soon to come, which is obviously this one. But it won't throw up anything new. It won't change any laws. It won't call for any further in-depth scrutiny into the Russian money that is ever present, within the Tory party. If you were to cut off the eye-watering sums of money that that you've mentioned, which flow directly into the coffers of the Conservative Party, they would be, pretty soon reduced to having the same income as, the Liberal Democrats. And when you've got an income of a similar amount of the Liberal Democrats, obviously you can't campaign as widely and as profusely as you can with a sizable chunk of money behind you. And again, we see this. It wasn't just Russian money. There was obviously the dark money used by the Scottish Tories that get filtered through from the DWP, and funnily enough, actually into the illustrious suburb of East Renfrewshire that I currently reside in. So I mean, parties need money. And Labour are no saints in this regard as well. There are series of stories in the not so distant past of trade union money being diverted and stuff like that in order to get filtered into the Labour Fighting Fund. So, again, I make the point that if this money is suddenly stemmed off from the Tory party, it would be very, very hard for them to campaign in the way that they actually do. And it would also be equally very hard for them to use their propaganda machine, which is, as we all know it, the BBC.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, Chris. We'll move on now because Novak Djokovic was back in practice hours after winning a court challenge to remain in Australia today, thanking the judge who released him from immigration detention and saying that he remained focused on his bid for a record 21st Grand Slam win in Melbourne. The fight over his medical exemption from COVID-19 vaccination may not be over, however, as the Australian government said it was still considering another move to deport him. I am pleased and grateful that the judge overturned my visa cancellation, Djokovic wrote on Twitter, where he posted a photograph of himself on court at the Rod Laver Arena in Melbourne Park. Despite all that has happened, I want to stay and try to compete at the Australian Open. Earlier, Judge Anthony Kelly had ruled the federal government's decision last week to revoke the Serbian tennis star's visa was unreasonable and ordered his release. A spokesman for Immigration Minister Alex Hawke said the minister was considering using his broad discretionary powers that he is given by Australia's Migration Act to again revoke Djokovic's visa. Such a move might include a 3-year ban on re-entering Australia. The minister is currently considering the matter and the process remains ongoing, the spokesman said. The controversy has been closely followed around the world, creating diplomatic tensions between Belgrade and Canberra and sparking heated debate over national vaccination rules. Judge Kelly said he had quashed the decision to block Djokovic's entry to Australia because the player was not given enough time to speak to tennis organisers and lawyers to respond fully after he was notified of the intent to cancel his visa. Officials at Melbourne's airport, where Djokovic had been detained on arrival late on Wednesday, reneged on an agreement to give Djokovic until 8:30 a.m. the following day to speak to tournament organiser Tennis Australia and lawyers, Kelly said. Djokovic was instead woken by officials around 6 a.m. and has said that he felt pressured to respond. The player, who has long opposed mandatory vaccination, told border officials he was unvaccinated and had had COVID-19 twice, according to a transcript of the interview. Kelly's ruling did not directly address the issue of whether the exemption on the grounds of an infection in the past 6 months was valid, which the government had disputed. So, Chris, this story has really taken off over the weekend, and certainly we've seen today even a Scottish angle with our own tennis star, Sir Andy Murray, successfully trolling Nigel Farage, who curiously has rushed to stand beside the Djokovic family in Serbia. Given the way in which people like Farage have been apparently magnetically attracted to this story, do you think there's something? Do you think the prominence which this story has been getting is it something more than simply a tennis player isn't apparently not allowed to play a game of tennis?
Well, I mean, I laid out in a tweet the Andy Murray highlighting Nigel Farage, tripping over to Belgrade in order to be at the family home of the Djokovic residence, waiting for the verdict. I just the irony was, weeping out of my laptop because this is a guy that told you that anybody from Eastern Europe were actually the scourge of the earth and shouldn't should not be treated with any baseline privileges and whatnot and what have you. The one thing that gets me, and again I put it out in another tweet, I'll shamelessly tweet Nicola's number one comrade. But I find it bizarre that people are fascinating over a visa for a tennis star, and yet we have Nadia Zaghira Radcliffe still waiting for the outcome of countless visa petitions and all the rest of it. When did tennis become a hotter issue than human rights that are denied to somebody that has been detained in captivity? I find it really, really bizarre that tennis takes precedence over that.
Absolutely, Chris. I couldn't agree with you more. We'll move on, however, because from today, all young people and children aged 5 to 21 years old in Scotland can apply for their new or replacement National Entitlement Card, or Young Scot National Entitlement Card, to access the scheme for free bus travel from the 31st of January 2022. The scheme, extending free bus travel to everyone aged under 22, builds on the Scottish Government's commitment to providing free bus travel to all under 19s in Scotland, which started in August 2021. The initiative is set to benefit around 930,000 young people across Scotland, and research from Transport Scotland indicates that 70% of young people would use public transport more frequently if it was free. The scheme will be delivered in partnership with Transport Scotland, the Improvement Service, the National Entitlement Card Programme Office, Young Scot, local authorities, and bus operators. So, Chris, I can't remember the precise age, but you have young people around and in your family as well. I'm not sure. Are any of them still under the age of 22?
My daughter is 21, and she greatly benefits from the existing criteria. Obviously, she's disabled, and the Scottish Government wonderfully tend to her needs with regards bus travel to the various activities that she goes to. It's been a wee bit hit and miss, I have to say, during the last 2 years because of COVID. But that's the harsh reality of things. But no, I mean, this would have been great. My two sons are 27 and 25, and when they were in their university years, that would have saved them a huge amount of money, on weekly bus travel. But again, I would actually call the Scottish Government controversial again. I would actually call on the Scottish Government to extend this to include asylum seekers, and not just cap it at the actual age at the moment. Asylum seekers in Scotland have got no recourse to public funds, and therefore, if they do happen to are lucky enough to attend college or university again, they've got no access to a bus pass, and I think that would be a game changer for the vast amount of asylum seekers in Scotland. So again, as a welcome this. It's going to be great for kids getting to university and college and the likes and stuff like that. But it's a step in the right direction to actually replicating, I believe, Luxembourg, where all public transport is completely free.
Yep. Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. That's a useful insight from you. Thank you. We're going to add a story just now, because shortly before we came on air, reports are appearing that Anas Sarwar, the leader of the British Labour Party in Scotland, has been making a speech, and he said two things that are maybe of consequence, and we should discuss. Chris, firstly, he has said that he has dismissed reports at the weekend that the Labour Party could allow candidates who support independence to stand for the Labour Party. He has dismissed those reports, and he has also said that Scottish Labour councillors should not form coalitions with either the SNP or Tories. He said that he instead wanted his party to maximise its representation, and also argued that there is a case to be made for minority administrations rather than entering into agreements and coalitions to take control of local authorities. Now, Chris, I think there are 9 local authorities in Scotland where the Labour Party is in coalition with the Tory party, and it has been quite controversial on councils such as Aberdeen City Council. Do you think that Anas Sarwar seeming to make his position a little bit clearer here, is that going to help his chances and the chances of his party at the Scottish Council elections in May this year?
No, it's not going to help him at all. I really feel sorry for Anas. This is an issue that Kezia Dugdale tried to stamper Doc Martens all over and made a complete hash of it. And so much so that the poor residents of Aberdeen, of which my youngest son was a former resident of, had to suffer under a council that was completely disabled, because of the pact that was ever present or omnipresent in that one council. Anas is managing to wonderfully shoot himself in both feet, with the same shotgun, because he's trying to tackle two burning issues, within Scottish Labour that are, a complete anachronism. That that many people could hope that it may be resolved, and any party that mandates their members not to engage in the constitutional question is on a hiding to nothing. And so I don't see that gaining any traction anytime soon. And trying to effectively whip people into not forming progressive alliances, whether it be with the Tories or whether it be with SNP. I think that's a very narrow-minded approach that Scottish Labour are taking, and one that's going to affect the citizens of Scotland, because in this day and age, consensual politics need to get done, more so on a local level than by an actual government level, because so many local issues need a consensual approach by councillors in order to benefit the constituency, and Holyrood doesn't really get involved in local constituency issues. So I think ANAS is really not approaching this in the most beneficial way for the citizens of Scotland.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. And now our final item this evening is that anyone who has not yet received their booster or third dose is being urged to come forward now to give the best possible protection against the Omicron variant. That includes anyone who was unable to attend a vaccination clinic before the Hogmanay bells because, for example, of a COVID-19 infection, or if they were self-isolating. People who are aged 18 and over can receive a booster 28 days after they tested positive, or if it has been at least 12 weeks since their second dose. Young people aged 12 to 17 can also attend for their second dose of the vaccine. Many will have received an appointment, but this group can also attend drop-in clinics at a time and place that's convenient for them, as long as 12 weeks has passed since their first JAG. So, Chris, is that a message for encouraging young people to get jagged? Is that a message that you can get behind?
It's certainly a message that I would get behind, and I would advocate that, as a trade unionist, I think it's vital that everybody takes up the opportunity to get vaccinated. It might be out of, pardon the pun, it might be out of left field, but I'm going to bring a wee story in here, and it's regarding IKEA in Glasgow. And they are talking about reducing the statutory sick pay for employees that are not vaccinated, and could potentially, possibly, pass the COVID-19 on to their colleagues. It'll be interesting from a trade union point of view as to see how that goes down. I've sent a email across to the STUC to see what their reaction is of that. But I would presume on the whole, trade unions all across the country would be advocating for all their members, young and old, to take up the offer of the vaccines as soon as possible.
Of course, Chris, thank you. I suppose the statutory sick pay for the IKEA retail workers, that can't be reduced, but the contractual sick pay certainly could be. So yes, it's an interesting development there, and one that I'm sure you and I are going to talk about again as we learn what the reaction from the trade union and from the workers is. However, that was our final item this evening. In making these programmes, Broadcasting Scotland relies on the support of viewers and others who value our distinctive approach to news, current affairs and culture. If you would like to support us, then please consider subscribing or donating to Broadcasting Scotland. You will find the link to do that on the screen now. Please bear in mind we really need all the financial assistance that we can get in order to continue and to do more of what we already do. There are other ways in which you can contribute to our work if you would like to volunteer to work with Broadcasting Scotland, either behind the scenes or in front of the cameras, or in any other way that helps our work and promotes the station, then please visit our website at www.broadcastingscotland.scot and send us a message there. Meantime, we will be here at 7 o'clock tomorrow evening for the next edition of Scotland at 7, so please tune in then. I'd also like to say a tremendous amount of thanks to Chris for joining us this evening. Thanks, Chris.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure, Andrew. Thank you very much for inviting me on.
It always is, Chris. Thank you. And also, thanks to everyone for watching us on Broadcasting Scotland. I hope that everyone keeps warm and keeps well. Bye-bye.